So with reliability, we had discussed in a previous video about how reliability is the consistency of the test or the assessment instrument, and that's incredibly important when we're assessing, to know that it's consistently assessing the same thing. And so one of the things is test retest, which gives us temporal stability. The other thing that we often look at is the internal consistency of the test or assessment. And essentially what that means is we give it, let's say we have a large sample and we give it just one time, just one administration to the sample. And do the items, I'm going to use the term correlate, but do they load as we would expect them to? So if you look at this items, let's say we've got a happiness test here, and we have the term I feel happy, and somebody indicates a 5, meaning that they feel happy much of the time. Then there's an item 2, I feel hopeless. Well, we would expect with internal consistency, what we're looking at are people answering the way we would expect them to answer. And so if somebody is saying that they feel happy much of the time, we wouldn't expect them to be feeling hopeless a lot of the time. And in this case, they've circled 1, saying, no, I don't feel hopeless. And then for number 3, I feel meaningful. They've circled 5 again, meaning they feel that a lot. And then for I feel worthless, they've scored that low. So that is kind of as we would expect with this particular person. And then when we give that to a large sample, we can then use the statistical procedure created that gives us the result of alpha. And the alpha is going to tell us the extent to which we have internal consistency, which again, the concept is just, are people answering these questions as we would expect them to? Now, you're going to have people that just flag the test, that just circle 3s or what have you, and they don't even read the questions. And so that is, with a large sample, that's not going to really mess up the alpha too much or decrease the alpha. But what we are looking for is an acceptable level of alpha, which is usually considered an alpha of equal to or greater of 0.8 or higher. And it can be higher than 1.0. I've seen alphas of 3 point something. But any alpha that's less than 0.5 is questionable. And again, this could be the result of vague questions. I will tell you that when you do a factor analysis, and this can be done through different statistical packages, that alpha is often generated, and then it can actually give you kind of how the items are loading, and then you can determine if these items are worded well. So for instance, with a factor analysis, you'll oftentimes we're measuring more than just one variable. So we may be measuring depression and anxiety and anger. And so we've got maybe 3 different facets that we're measuring, and we may have 10 questions for each of those facets. And with internal consistency, we get an overall alpha for the test itself, but then we can also get loadings for each one of those, and we can say, hey, as all the questions we devised to measure anxiety, they seem to be loading on the same scale. And then we can determine if they are, and if maybe a question needs to be worded differently, or maybe that a question that we've thought was measuring anxiety is actually measuring more depression. But just kind of giving you the conceptual understanding of internal consistency, which is an important factor when determining the reliability of a test.